Welcome to my channel, Veteran's Legacy. Today's story will take you deep into the heart of the ocean, aboard a massive U.S. Navy carrier, where a simple radio call sign made a room full of battle-hardened officers fall silent. This isn't just a story about war. It's about legacy, sacrifice, and the haunting echoes of a name once feared on every battlefield. The USS Sentinel cut through the dark waves of the Pacific like a silent beast. The night was calm, but inside the carrier's command deck, tension simmered. The fleet had lost communication with an important reconnaissance drone. It wasn't just any drone, it was one carrying classified intel from a region teetering on the edge of conflict. Captain Reed, a firm but fair officer in his 40s, leaned over the console. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the radar. "We need that feed back. I want a tech team on it now." A young ensign replied, "Sir, the drone's uplink was coded under an old military frequency, classified clearance required." "Whose clearance?" Reed asked. "Someone who hasn't been active in over 20 years, sir." That drew the captain's attention. He frowned, tapping the desk. "Pull up the file." The screen flickered, and an old code appeared, Hammer 6. The captain blinked. Who the hell is Hammer 6? Down in the lower decks, an older man worked quietly in the maintenance bay. His hair was silver, his hands calloused, but his movements were precise, like a man who had spent a lifetime fixing what others broke. His name tag simply read, J. Harlan. He wasn't part of the main crew, just a contracted systems consultant brought in to assist with some outdated communications tech. Most of the young sailors didn't even know his first name. They just called him, Old Man, or, Sir, out of respect. But tonight, fate was about to drag him back into the world he'd left behind. Sir, said the ensign, glancing nervously at the captain, the system lists the original operator of that frequency as Colonel Jonathan Harlan, retired, United States Marine Corps. Reed turned sharply. "What, Harlan? As in R. Harlan?" The ensign nodded. The captain's brow furrowed. "Bring him up here, now." Minutes later, the heavy metal doors slid open, and the old man stepped onto the bridge. The air changed. His presence carried a strange weight, calm but commanding. Reed gestured toward the radar screen. "Mr. Harlan, I've got a problem that apparently belongs to you." The old veteran looked at the code flashing in red. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened. He didn't say a word for a moment, then asked quietly, "Where did you get that frequency?" Reed crossed his arms. "That drone is using your old encryption. The system's demanding your call sign to reauthorize the link." The old man's gaze lingered on the flickering light. "Hammer 6, he whispered, almost to himself. The young officers exchanged glances. Reed frowned. "What does that mean?" Harlan exhaled slowly. "It means someone's playing with ghosts." They took him to the main console, where he entered a series of manual overrides that no one on the ship even recognized. His fingers moved with the confidence of a man who had done this 1,000 times before. The radar pinged. The drone's feed came alive, grainy at first, then crystal clear. A gasp spread through the deck. The drone wasn't just lost, it had been tracking something. 3 enemy submarines moving in formation, silent, deep, and close. If they hadn't recovered the signal, the fleet would have been ambushed within hours. Captain Reed turned to him, his voice low but charged. "How did you know what to do?" Harlan looked at the screen, his expression distant. "Because I wrote the original protocol, 25 years ago." Word spread fast. Across the carrier, the old man in the lower deck wasn't just a mechanic, he was a legend. Rumors whispered through the halls that he once led covert marine strike teams, that he'd been part of missions the government never admitted happened. And the call sign, Hammer 6, wasn't just a name. It was a warning. That night, the Admiral himself came aboard. Admiral Price was a man who had seen decades of command, yet when he stepped into the command deck and saw the name on the screen, he froze. "Hammer 6, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've got to be kidding me." Harlan stood at the console, hands behind his back, posture straight despite his age. "Admiral," he said with a respectful nod. The Admiral stared at him for a long moment. "I thought you were gone." "I was," Harlan replied. "Until tonight." The 2 men stepped aside, their conversation low but tense. You know what that code means, the Admiral said. I do, Harlan answered. And if someone's reactivated my old frequency, it means they've uncovered one of our Black Ops networks. Someone's trying to stir the past. The Admiral shook his head. We buried that for a reason. You were the last link to Hammer Team. Harlan's eyes hardened. Apparently not. Flashback. The screen fades to sand, smoke, and the chaos of the Middle East in the early 2000s. Harlan, call sign Hammer 6, led a 6-man Marine strike team deep behind enemy lines. Their mission: extract a captured U.S. intelligence officer before he broke under torture. It was supposed to be a 2-hour op. It turned into 3 days of hell. His team was ambushed. 2 killed instantly, another wounded. Harlan carried his men out under gunfire, refusing evacuation until the last Marine was accounted for. When reinforcements finally arrived, he was standing knee-deep in the rubble, bloodied but unbroken. That day, the name Hammer 6 became legend, spoken with reverence and fear. Back in the present, Captain Reed watched Harlan work beside the Admiral. Sir, if I may ask, what exactly was Hammer 6? The Admiral glanced at him, his eyes distant. A unit that did the impossible. Missions that never made it to paper. When things got too dangerous for even special forces, they sent Hammer Team. And he was their leader. The Admiral nodded. The best I ever saw. Suddenly, alarms blared. The drone's signal flickered. Sir, shouted the comms officer. We've got a breach in the signal. Someone's trying to jam us. The Admiral turned. Can you stop it? Harlan's hands were already flying over the console. Whoever this is, they're good. Military-grade encryption. But they're not perfect. He rerouted the link through 3 relay satellites, then slammed his palm on the console. The feed stabilized again, but what appeared next made everyone fall silent. It wasn't the ocean. It was a message, burned into the drone's transmission channel. 2 words. Hammer awake. The Admiral's face went pale. Oh my God. Reed looked confused. Sir. Price swallowed hard. That was the recall code. Only Hammer operatives would know it. Harlan's jaw clenched. That means one of them is still alive. Impossible, the Admiral said quietly. You were the last. Then someone else is using their identities. What followed was a race against time. Using fragments of the old Hammer network, Harlan tracked the signal to an abandoned naval listening post on a remote island. The data showed encrypted transmissions bouncing from there to multiple foreign channels. Someone was trying to sell classified tech, the same protocols Harlan had designed decades ago. Sir, said Reed, if they leak that tech, it'll expose our entire submarine defense grid. Harlan nodded. Then we stop them. Tonight. The Admiral hesitated. You're not cleared for combat anymore, Colonel. Harlan turned slowly, his eyes cold. With respect, Admiral, clearance didn't save my men last time. Action did. There was silence. Then the Admiral gave a single nod. You'll have what you need. Night fell again. A storm rolled across the ocean as a small strike team launched from the Sentinel, led by none other than the man they once called Hammer 6. The young sailors looked at him with awe as he strapped in. One whispered, Sir, were you really a legend? Harlan gave a faint smile. No, son, just a Marine who never learned how to quit. The island was pitch black when they landed. The wind howled. Thunder cracked above the cliffs. Moving through the ruins, they found the source of the transmission, an old satellite uplink guarded by mercenaries. The firefight was brutal, rain mixed with gunfire, lightning flashing across helmets and rifles. But Harlan moved through the chaos with the precision of a man who had lived this life too many times before. When one of his men went down, he didn't hesitate. He pulled him behind cover, patched his wound, and went back into the storm. Finally, he reached the main terminal, ripping the drive from its core. Then, over the comms, a voice echoed. Gravelly. Familiar. Didn't think you'd actually come back, Hammer 6. Harlan froze. Who is this? The voice chuckled darkly. Your old number 2, Colonel. Guess we're both ghosts now. The Admiral's worst fear was true. One of Harlan's old team had survived and gone rogue. The 2 men faced each other among the lightning and the wreckage, brothers turned enemies. Why, Mason? Harlan shouted over the storm. Because they left us to die. Mason roared back. You think they cared about us? You think that flag meant anything after they buried our names? Harlan's heart pounded. We did what we did because it mattered. Because people trusted us. Trusted us. Mason spat. They erased us. The tension snapped. A single shot rang out. When the storm cleared, only one man stood. Harlan, drenched, breathing hard, dropped his weapon and whispered, "I'm sorry, brother." Back aboard the Sentinel, the Admiral watched silently as Harlan returned, carrying the recovered drive. The mission was over, but something in the old man's eyes said he'd left a part of himself on that island. "Sir," the Admiral said quietly, "you just saved the fleet." Harlan gave a faint smile. "Just another day at sea, Admiral." The Admiral shook his head. "No, this was more than that. You reminded them what duty looks like." As dawn broke, the carrier's deck glowed gold in the morning light. Young sailors gathered as Harlan prepared to disembark. One asked, "Sir, what was it like, being Hammer 6? He looked out at the endless horizon. It was hell, but it was also honor. Every man who wore that name carried the weight of those who didn't make it back. And if you ever forget that, then none of this means anything." He turned and walked toward the rising sun, his figure fading into the light, leaving behind a silence only respect could fill. And that's the story of Hammer 6. A man who lived his life in the shadows, carrying ghosts the world never knew existed, until the day those ghosts came calling. Sometimes heroes aren't born from glory. They're forged in loss. If this story moved you, if it made you feel the heartbeat of true sacrifice, then please like, comment, and subscribe to Veterans Legacy. Because every legend deserves to be remembered. And every soldier's story deserves to be told.